I have my own fair share of scary experiences, mostly paranormal. But the one I will never forget lasted about a week. Long post ahead. It was early November in 2010, and we've just finished celebrating All Souls Day, or Day of the Dead, here in the Philippines. We lived in a small subdivision surrounded by kind neighbors, so we didn't really expect things to turn south that fast. It's just me, my brother, my mom, and dad, grandfather, and cousin. We've been living in the house for about 6 months, and so far, so good. My mom's store is doing great. The first time being able to watch Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, and I've just started my Pokemon Fire Red playthrough. Then it happened. My cousin told us about the voices he hears at night and the constant banging she feels underneath her bed. We shrugged it off as some nightmare, and days passed until she brought it up again. But this time, she woke up nearby the stairs at 3 a.m. And that actually made my parents a little worried. I was a kid, so I wasn't actually scared. But I'm actually pretty pumped to experience my first actual paranormal activity. My brother, on the other hand, was quiet for some reason. What my cousin told us the next day actually sent shivers down my spine. He was taking a bath, and when she poured water on her back, it parted ways like someone or something was on her back. Initially, it wasn't that scary, but I was reminded of Shutter and Boy, which scared me to death when we watched it. It was then that my brother admitted that he can see spirits, shadow, and light figures. And my dad actually experienced participating in an exorcism when he was still young. That events that proceeded to unfold are just horrifying, thinking about it now that I'm older. We had our first exorcism and it wasn't what I expected it to be. It was just lying on the bed and saying weird stuff. I actually hoped that she'd levitate or rotate her head at an angle. He was able to read a page from the Bible before becoming stable. My brother heard voices of different genders and ages. What's worse is that she had to sleep in our room, since she is cursed or something. She slept below the side where I usually sleep in, and in that moment, I've never wanted to sleep as fast in my entire life. The thought of opening your eyes and she's floating above you or staring at you directly in your face. The next day was kinda tame. My cousin was doing fine and my grandpa just happened to see a lady in a black veil coming down from the stairs into the kitchen, which was just an extension of the house. I was outside the time, as well as my parents and brother, so not the type of news we'd want to hear. The next day was the grand finale, good versus evil. As I watched everything unfold while eating a bowl of noodles, it was the worst she's ever been physically, and it looked terrifying. She started doing incantations, to which my grand 10-year-old brain responded with more made-up incantations. I did not take it seriously at all. They decided to cleanse her room, which was even harder to do because of her brother participating in the cleanse, and eventually getting possessed too. He looked at one of the images of my grandmother, to which he described the eyes turning black, and that's when he lost control. He was virgin strong, being able to take on my dad and priest assistant. Eventually, she threw up a black necklace and decided to do a kill it on the dance floor, as witnessed by my kid brain. She looked into a mirror, and just like that, it was over. They took care of the mirror and she was brought into church rehab. We didn't realize how many spectators we had outside of our house. We discovered that the owner of the house performed a ritual after the extension, so yeah, We had to move out. I'm glad it's just the house that's haunted. She's doing fine now, and so are we. According to some of our ex-neighbors, they still see figures inside her room when they walk past it. About 3 years ago, my mom and I were living in a one-bedroom apartment. We didn't really have any money and it was the only place we could afford. It was a super old Victorian home in Tacoma, Washington that had been sectioned off into 4 different little apartments. Since I was a kid, I've always been super sensitive to energy. Whether it's people or a place, if there's some type of negativity, I can sense it. When we first moved in there, I felt weird. I wouldn't say that I felt anything evil there, but the place felt off. A couple months in, I went to spend the night at my boyfriend's place, which wasn't something I did often. About 9:30 p.m., I got a call from my mom. Mind you, at the time she was 63 years old. I picked up and could immediately tell she was upset. She asked me if I was with my boyfriend and if I was okay. I told her yes, I'm perfectly fine, and she then explained to me that she'd gone to lay down to go to sleep, and she heard my voice yell her name. At first, I doubted if she just had a bad dream, but she was sure she hadn't even been lying down for more than a minute, still wide awake, and then it was like I was right in the doorway yelling "Mama." We both tried to forget about it. My mom was convinced something was there in our apartment that was trying to scare her. A week later, she'd gotten some Palo Santos to try cleansing the apartment. She again did this while I was out, but she called me scared, begging me to come home. When I got back, she explained she'd done the usual, starting from the front door, going throughout the living room to the bed and bath, then the kitchen, working her way front to back. She said as she came to walk back into the living room where she had this little table and chairs, her chair was pulled out from the table and tilted back, balancing on its back legs. I tried reassuring her we would start looking for a new place, but it wasn't going to happen fast because of our money problems. About a month after, I was on the couch while she was cutting vegetables for dinner, and I heard her scream. I ran into the kitchen and she said she had placed the knife down on the cutting board, turned around to the sink to grab another vegetable, and when she turned back, the knife was gone. She said she turned back to the sink and was checking the counters, but it wasn't there. So she opened up the drawer to get another knife, and when she turned back to the cutting board, it was there again. We left the next day to stay with a friend for a while, but this was the most scared I'd ever seen my mom, and I know it wasn't because she was losing it or just getting old. She's still very lucid. I still believe we'd stay there, something bad would have happened to her. I'm starting to suspect that someone I can see or who is from another dimension is in love with me or deeply cares about me. It's hard to describe, so let's just start from the beginning. Incident 1. I was walking to my park one day when someone whispered in my ear,
"Be careful."
I stopped in my track and looked behind me. There was nobody there, and the street was empty. I was going to continue walking to my car when suddenly a drunk driver nearly hit me with his car. I was one step away from the car. Had I not stopped walking, I would have died on the spot for sure because of how fast the car was going. I tried to thank the person who saved me, but it was an abandoned street and nobody was there. Incident 2. A couple of months later, I was texting on my phone at 2 a.m. I didn't feel tired at all, but I needed to sleep. The reason is that a lot of work tasks to do in the morning. I put down my phone to try to sleep, but I couldn't. I picked up my phone again to resume texting, and I sent a text to someone. I then felt someone right next to me on my bed and caress my back. The covers on my bed even moved with the transparent weight of that entity. I cried. I was scared out of my mind. I called all my friends in a panic. When I went back to my room, I could feel the presence was gone. Incident 3. Sometimes, I would feel that someone is on top of me right before I would go to sleep. I would assume that I'm sleeping and therefore hallucinating. I would also sometimes randomly feel a presence in my room at night, or even a presence sitting on the edge of my bed. Yesterday, I felt someone sleeping beside on my bed. I tried to move away and they scooted closer to me. I was done and went to sleep somewhere else where I was left alone. What do you think? What should I do? I put some salt in my room, but that didn't stop any of this. I've only had 2 experiences in my life, but this one takes the cake. Just to preface, I've always been completely open to the paranormal being real, and always been fascinated by the topic. My girlfriend was always a non-believer. So, in 2018, my girlfriend and I found out we had a baby girl on the way. We moved in and rented a house that was built in 2007. No one has died in the house. I checked after this incident. The only noteworthy thing that happened near the house was a wife who had been abused finally stood up for herself and blasted her husband with a shotgun in the middle of the cul-de-sac we live on. Interesting but unrelated. Anyways, a buddy of mine was getting married soon, so we were throwing his bachelor party in San Diego, and I left for the weekend to attend. After a weekend of blacking out, riding scooters from bar to bar, I come from the trip later in the evening on Sunday, hang out with my GF for a bit, and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, I wake up, and my eyes are immediately drawn towards the corner of our room by our bedroom door. I see what looks like a woman in a white dress with the long hair just kinda hanging out. I was still half asleep but remember specifically thinking to myself, who the fuck is that? But at the same time being totally and perfectly calm. Don't get me wrong. I'm not the type to see a ghost and not freak the fuck out. Yet, I saw whatever this was. I knew I wasn't sleeping, but somehow just knew it wasn't a big deal or threat. I can't really describe the feeling. I was awake but exhausted and just basically went back to sleep. Not the reaction I would tell you to expect from me. When I woke up, I remembered everything perfectly. But because of my reaction of not freaking out and somehow just going back to bed, I chalk it up as a realistic dream. We were in the middle of our morning routine and my GF asked how I slept. I said jokingly, "Good, except for waking up to some lady standing in the corner of our bedroom." He looked at me in a way that threw me off and said, "Are you serious? What do you mean?" So I told her, "I don't know. I woke up in the middle of the night and swore I saw a lady in a white dress with dark hair just standing in the corner of our bedroom. But I'm sure it was just a dream." He looks at me and says, "I didn't want to tell you because I thought I'd seem crazy, but while you were out of town, I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and when I was coming back to bed, I swore I saw a lady in a white dress with dark hair standing in our closet. I ran and jumped in bed and kept telling myself it was just my imagination. For my GF to say this and for me to see her reaction to what I said kinda shook me up. Here was the total non-believer, visibly shaken up by what she saw and what I said I saw also. Our bathroom is in a completely separate area from our bedroom, and you get into the closet from the bathroom, so the sightings were in the exact opposite parts of our room. After doing the research and finding out no one had died in the house, I think that it was probably a family member looking over our baby girl who was on the way. We haven't had any other experiences since, but now we have a second child on the way. Since finding out about the new baby, I've been wondering if we will see our house guest again. I've wanted to post this to see if anyone else had a similar experience, or even better, if someone can give a valid alternative explanation. Back when I was 18, I was living with my epileptic godmother in her townhouse. It's worthwhile to say that at this point I absolutely did not believe in ghosts, like 0%. It's also safe to say that after this experience that has changed dramatically. One evening, around midnight, I was talking on the phone with my then boyfriend when I heard godmother having a seizure in her bedroom across the hall. This was a common-ish occurrence that we've gone through a million times over the years. So I calmly got off the phone and was going to her room while dialing 911, knowing we'd be making a trip to the hospital. Sadly, my godmother can't come out of her seizure without hospitalization. Now, for those of you who don't know, seizure sounds are very distinct. The way someone grunts or how their superpowered limbs hit the floor. There's nothing else like it. So imagine my surprise as I opened my godmother's door to find her and her two dogs sleeping peacefully. I apologized for the mistake to the 911 operator and went back to my bedroom, confused but relieved that she was okay. So, I called my boyfriend back and explained what just happened. We agreed it was odd, but whatever. Another 10 minutes go by as we're on the phone and I hear the sounds again. The grunts, the hitting, the floor repeatedly, all coming from my godmother's room again. I tell my boyfriend, there it is again. She's absolutely having a seizure. But this time I don't hang up and instead keep him on the phone as I go check the room. As I approach the door, he said he could hear those background noises as well from the phone. But as I turned the doorknob, the sound stopped. I still go in and see my godmother and her two dogs still sleeping as they were 10 minutes ago. At this point, I'm annoyed, but still not thinking ghost, but rather maybe some stray animal got into the house because it was snowing outside, and maybe it's somehow making similar noises. So I tell my boyfriend I'll call him in the morning and toss my phone into my bedroom as I explore the house for some sort of justification. Well, I looked everywhere, every room empty, every window and door locked. As I mentioned, it was snowing outside, and I even picked out to see if there were any little prints, and nothing, just fresh snow. At this point, I'm super confused but very confident that there's nothing unusual in the house. So I go back upstairs to my bedroom, close my door, and I'm about to watch TV in bed. However, 15 to 30 seconds after closing my door, I hear the distinct creaking of the last step from the distance outside my door. Just as I made the split-second realization that there's no way that could be my godmother there, came 3 aggressively loud, clear as day knocks at my bedroom door. I can only describe the feeling as if my body instantly evaporated from my veins. I didn't speak, and I sure as hell didn't answer the door, but rather jump into action, shoving my dresser in front of my door to block it. I grabbed my phone to try and call my godmother to wake her or alert her without this thing knowing, but no luck. I go to call the police, but realizing that I had already mistakenly called 911 earlier and knowing that I just saw an empty house for myself. And there was a good chance they would not be pleased if they made the same discovery. So, I called my boyfriend, who drove over and got in with the emergency key. He explored the house and around it from the outside. Nothing. No signs of anyone entering or exiting the house. My disbelief in ghosts, however, is gone for good. Thankfully, since this was 12 years ago, and even though I remember like it was yesterday, I wrote about it in my journal back then, so I know I'm not misremembering. Apart from my wishes, I opened the door to see what had happened, or what it was, but survival instincts say I made the right choice. But if anyone else has a similar experience or an alternative explanation, I'm all ears.